Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about outboard shaper fences and modifying this one, actually making a new one to hopefully get rid of some of the problems I'm having with this one. This one here is a piece I had made like 5 years ago, and it's all steel, and the holes down here are all incremental, so I can get every 16th inch increment between, depending which hole pattern I put this in. And the advantage to that is I can set this in here once I drop these pins in. And if I take the slop out of this fence, that's 1 inch. All I gotta do is just pop these 2 pins out, move it, and now I have 2 inches. And I have every increment in there up to 4 or 5 inches, somewhere in there. Problem is I have this slack in this arm here, and it's usually pretty consistent. I can get it dialed down to where I'm only a 16th, or not even a 16th, a few thousandths consistency in the width, which is what you're looking for when you're trying to make repeatable parts for like face frames and doors, because by the time you stack all those parts together, you'll have a cumulative error by the time you get to the top or to the end of a larger project, and then your doors don't fit, and then the overall length is too big. So you need consistent parts, repeatable parts, and that's where this comes in. So I've got an idea to modify this. Rather than having 1/4 inch increments on the vernier holes down here, I'm gonna knock it down to 1/8 inch. And then to get your last 16th of adjustment, I think we can make a fence that has a 16th inch offset. So we'll drill a pair of, well, first we'll have 2 fences. We'll have one on this side, one on this side, with matching hole patterns. So as you come out, you just drop the 2 pins out there and work the fence out. But then those will be in 1/8 inch increments, and then to get the last 16th of adjustment out of the system, that'll be in the fence. So I'll have the hole here. One side will be like 2 inches, the other side will be 2 1/16. And by flipping the fence over, now we can get the last 16th inch of increments out of this fence system. So that's the plan for today. First we'll go over to the computer, get this all drawn up in Onshape, and then export the DXF to VCarve, then export the VCarve file to the CNC router, and we're going to cut out 4 of these side rails. So we're back here at the computer. We're going to redraw this with 4 rows of holes instead of 5. We had 1 set of holes too many, and that was going to give us a duplicate measurement that we don't really need. Still 16 inches long is the length of our shaper there. First hole we're going to put 7/8 off the edge so we have room to screw it to a board that will be clamped to the side of the machine. And the .197 diameter is basically 5mm. That's what I have for a drill bit that will fit in the CNC router. These need to be 1/8 inch increments. So now if you picture our fence, we have an imaginary rail here. this. Imagine this is an imaginary fence rail, and we'll have a hole right here. Set this to 0 and drop it in this hole, that'd be 0. And if you pull that pin and move it to this hole, you'll be an 1/8 inch further away. Move it to this hole, you'll be a 1/4 inch further away. Move it to this hole, you'll be 3/8 of an inch further off the fence. Then we're going to just pattern this out so that we have a whole other set of holes here, and that'll give us our 1/2 inch, 5/8, 3/4, 7/8, so on and so forth. Alright, we're back here at the CNC router. We're going to put a 5mm brad point drill in here. Those with a keen eye will see the groove over here. Yes, I already broke a bit. So we're going to redo everything again. Down, that's our Z0. Call that our XY0. Let's try this again. All right. That wraps up the drilling. I'm gonna bring this back over here and put our 5mm compression bit back in. All we're gonna change this time is our Z height. We're not resetting our XY origin because that's already indexed. That whole pattern is indexed to the current origin, and we wanna leave it there. This time we're gonna need some dust collection. There we go. 2 matching parts. The drill pattern's in there. Yes, there is one extra hole right there that I didn't catch. And I think that is the origin from the original drawing from Onshape. Let me get these pulled out of here. We'll bring them over to the shaper. All right, we're back here at the shaper. Got the 2 side fences here. I gotta remove this old one. And I've already clamped one of the temporary side pieces to the machine. And we're just gonna make sure we got the same end facing that direction and make sure the angle of these holes are also going the same direction. So this one we're just gonna stick over here. Got the drills here already. We're just gonna come in a little bit. Put a 2.5 inch long screw on this side. Same thing at this end. And then we can just adjust this side rail. I just got it clamped loosely. I'm just gonna adjust it until it's just flush with the table. Probably best to that's one side. Here's the strip for the other side. I think we're going to grab some quick grips just to get these temporarily installed, because we're going to have to adjust them front to back to get our 0 dialed in perfectly. And then once we have that dialed in, then we can use the C-clamps to do a little bit more of a permanent job. And then once we know this will work, we can even bolt these onto the side afterwards. That's all we need for those. So you can see this one, I just left it low. We're in roughly the same spot. I made them way longer than they need to be, apparently. But you could always use that extra length and overhang the table if you are doing wider material. We'll just do one clamp on each side until we get it dialed in. So now, what we need to know is it's 3/4 heavy, it's 3/4 heavy. You want to pick the same set of holes and get our on-center spacing. So 2 holes that are all the way to the right or 2 holes that are all the way to the left. Or I think we can use the straight edge on this side and the straight edge on this side, because those boards we made are symmetrical. So our holes need to be 36 and 15/16 on center. And what we're going to do is I just got an arbitrary piece of wood here. I cut it to length. And it is 4 1/16 wide. So earlier what I was saying is we were going to have a 1/16 difference. This hole isn't going to go in the middle. It's going to go 1/16 off center. So we'll have, for instance, 2 inches here, 2 1/16 here. And that's what's going to give us our fine adjustment for 1/16 inch increments. So fortunately, this piece is 4 1/16. Let's get our center the other direction. 42 minus roughly 37 is 5. So we're going to come in 2.5 inches. All right. So then we're going to hook 10 inches on here just to eliminate the slop in the ruler. And then we're going to go to 46 and 15/16. And then we're going to go 2. And 2. I want to drill these holes on the drill press so that they're nice and square and they line up with these. So we're going to start with 5mm. That should give us a snug fit. Hopefully there's enough tolerance and everything. I got some 5mm bolts here. They've got a little bit of wiggle room. So let me go drill these and we'll go from there. All right, got our 2 holes drilled. And this side is 2. This side is 2 1/16. So then we're just going to put this in a pair of holes, which is kind of hard to see, apparently. All right, I got those 2 holes drilled with these pins in there, and we're going to use the shaper cutter to zero these fences. So the holes on this side to the right is what I'm going to call my 1/2 inch increments. So we're going to have 0, 1/2, 1, 1 1/2. And then we've also got 2 are offset in the fence here. So when we're in our thicker side, the 2 1/16 to be against towards the cutter, and then we'll zero everything. And then as we slide along, we'll have 1/2, 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2. And then if we were to just flip this around, we would have a 1/16, 9/16. It's going to add a 1/16 to every measurement on our scales on the side. So we're going to thicker side against the fence. And that's what we're going to use to zero this. Make sure we are in the same holes, 3 1/4, 3 3/4, so I'm 1/2 inch off. So now we are 3 1/4, 3 1/4. And now, since these are just clamped in here, I'm gonna bump these back. Until this cutter is just hitting. And since this is fed with an outboard or a power feeder pushing it out towards the outside, it doesn't really have to be parallel to anything. Obviously it would make it a little bit easier if it is, but it doesn't have to be. So that's just hitting right there. Let's see how parallel we are to the table. 4 9/16, 4 5/8. So I think we'll parallel it up just because. Bring that side out, bring that side in. 4 9, 4 9 heavy. Now we're just hitting again. So let me put the C-clamps on here. So I'm back. So I've been playing with this for the last few minutes. I cut the corners off this stick here just to help see where the holes are. And then turns out you can figure out where you are way easier just by pulling the pins out. So if I want to get to 2 inches, it's way easier to see. I marked the holes versus the edge of the fence. So that'd be 0, 1/2, 1, 1 1/2, 2. So if I want to get to 2 inches, it's way easier to see that hole. You just kind of lock where your eye is, and it drops in. And the same thing on this side. You got 0, 1/2, 1, 1 1/2, 2. Keep an eyeball where 2 is and drop it in. And it's way easier to see what's going on there if you just take the pin right out. So then they go to like 2 1/2. You just take this pin out. 2, 2 1/2. That hole right there. Go to this side. 2 1/2. And that right there. And then, as you can see, right at 2 1/2. And then, like I said, if you want to go that 1/16 inch oversize for your first pass, you would flip this over. I labeled the fence here plus a 1/16 when it's facing that way. There's 2. Drop it in that hole. There's 2 on that side. Lost it. 2. Drop it in that hole. And now it's a 1/16 oversized. It should be. So Yeah, if you pull the pins, it's way easier to see what's going on. I'll probably order some different pins at some point. That's all. All right, so we're back. It's another day. I was editing this video and I decided that you would probably want to see this in action. So I got a couple scrap pieces of wood here that I oversized to 3 1/8. We're going to try to get 2 3-inch pieces out of them. So we'll do one pass at 3 1/16, and then we'll do a final pass at 3-inch. So let's see, I haven't touched the setup on this, so we'll do a sample at the +16th by putting that in the 3-inch hole. So we got 3-inch right there. And I also couldn't stand trying to get those bolts out, so I just welded some washers on real quick. So that's set up for 3-inch. Got the power feeder turned on. Should be 3 1/16. Let's see how we did. So we're right at 3. So just make sure we didn't mess something up. Let's flip this over. Put it on size. See what we get. Didn't even hit. Let's try this other piece I got cut. Apparently we gotta make another fence. We've only got 10 thousandths difference between the two pieces. So we're not getting our 16th inch offcuts, but for demonstration purposes, let's just do it this way. So that's just the fence itself. We don't have our 16th inch difference. Might be a little bit small. Well, we're right at 4 55 thousandths, so just about. So that pass, we ended up at 2,995, basically 3 inches. So now we just move this in. An 8. So there's our 3, that's 2. We're gonna go 2 1/2. 2 5/8, 2 3/4, 2 7/8. Let's drop that in the 2 7/8 hole. Same thing on this side. Let's see what we get. This is a full 1/8 inch pass, just to demonstrate the repeatability. It should be 2 7/8 within a few thousandths. 875 is 7/8. We're at 881, so we're 6 thousandths off, 1/10 of a 16th. So pretty darn good. Keep working that back. So say you have a different size piece. Want to go to 1/8 inch smaller again? There's 2, 2 1/2, 7/8, 3/4. Where is it? 2 1/2. this again. Now we should be 2 3/4. This time we are 12 thousandths off, but well within tolerance. You will never, that's way better than you'd ever do with just trying to guess with a tape measure. Like you look right there, it's dead nuts on the tape measure, but you can't see 12 thousandths. Now we're even reading 8 thousandths, so the repeatability is there. I got to redo my fence. I don't have quite enough of offset in there. I think what it is, the holes ended up being perfectly centered in that fence, so I didn't get that 16th inch difference. So I'm not going to bore you with making another fence. I think the problem here is the layout I did on this one board. The holes ended up being centered, so we don't get the offset we need to get that 16th inch. We're only like 12 thousandths off from one side to the other, so I got to make a new fence with the proper offset and the holes. But like I said, I'm not going to bore you with that. So that will complete this video. If you found it interesting, give it a like and subscribe. And I appreciate you watching. Thanks.